All right then. Hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa. It's time for another Amish Inquisition episode 346 on Sunday, the 22nd of September, 2024. I'm Phil, and I'm on my lonesome tonight. Matt and Ben aren't in the studio. They're off filming a remake of Brokeback Mountain. But don't worry about that, because I'm very happy to be joined down the line by the miracle of computers and communication, RN Vooght. How you doing, Rich?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for the invitation again, buddy.
And why can't
Nice to be with you.
Shit. I've got you on mute. Sorry, mate. Hang on one sec. There you go. Tell you, we're just far too slick, us, aren't we, at this shit?
I'm rubbing off on you, all my technical skills, bro.
How are you, Rich? How's it going?
Yeah, good. But just for the listeners, Phil just got me out of jail with showing me how to actually use my laptop and make sure my microwave's working at full capacity.
Your microwave?
Did I say microwave? Oh, I love that.
Oh gosh. Well, I was saying like the necessary evil.
No, we crashed. I thought we'd crashed. It's been one of them. It's one of them times in my life at the moment where everything's just kind of coming to a head. You know what I mean? It's I'm starting a new job in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I've just moved from one location in the north of the country near yourselves up in Leeds.
All right.
Down to the south coast, and yeah, it's just massive change going on. And in fairness, I didn't even think I was going to have a microphone today. I got set up about 20 minutes ago. I was like, brain fart. It's at home. It's in a new location. And then my wonderful get out of jail free card, which I call my girlfriend, she said, "Nice, on top of the wardrobe."
Gosh, there's nothing.
But here we are.
Yeah. I mean, it's stressful enough moving just across the same town. I can't imagine what it's like relocating to the other side of the country. So, thanks for
it's been crazy.
Thanks for finding the time to spend with us this evening. I've been looking forward to this. I look back; it was last October when you came, the first time.
Hello.
I know. Where's it go? So, very much looking forward to that. And you just slipped in before we started recording that you're working on another book, which I didn't know about. So that's quite exciting as well.
Yeah, indeed. Again, with regards to the move and the new job change and bits and pieces, it's just finding the time to kind of cross the T's, dot the I's, and finalise things, you know.
Yeah, I get it.
But it's got a loose working title at the moment. Entheogens in antiquity.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it's. I think I said this the last time we spoke. Actually, when I first published The Spirit in the Sky, I wanted to kind of push my chips and said, there you go, that's the one. If you haven't already, that's the starting platform. That's the jumping off point.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought that was going to be the mic drop, but that led to DMT, Deities, Myth and Tryptamines, which I'm extremely proud about. And then, yeah, the rabbit hole got deeper, searching for Osiris and the Tree of Life, the last publication, which is almost 2 years old now, I think.
Wow.
And yeah, I've got a thing where I like to do the best part of a year's research, 18 months research, and then build a book from there on out and try and publish every sort of 2 to 3 years, really. But as I say, with a backlog of moving length and breadth of the country, I guess, the new job change and bits and pieces, and trying to be a dad in the meantime, it's it's hard to squeeze writing in.
Sometimes life gets in the way, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And in fairness, I should have spent a little bit more recon on today's, because yeah, as you know, we spoke just off air. The Arsenal were playing today as well, so thought I'd squeeze that one in before we kicked off. But I'm happy. It was a decent result.
I mean, before we jump into because we messed around with sharing screen, and I mean, a lot of your stuff is quite visual. You're dealing with symbolism and constellations
Sure.
and compounds. So sharing screen is probably a good idea. But I mean, before we jump into all that, you mentioned the title Entheogens in Antiquity. Are you looking at potential compounds and uses in ritualistic Egypt or mystery skills? Is that the sort of idea?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. If anything, it's almost branching off, excuse the pun, from the tree of life that I've been doing with regards to the entheogenic Osiris mythology. And for all intents and purposes, it really does genuinely feel like it's more of a global phenomenon. It's just not strictly ancient Egypt. And I mean, I spoke about the Aboriginals, the Norse mythology and bits and pieces in searching for Osiris. But it's just the way, I don't want to give too much away because there's a couple of things that I could say that would kind of open doors to other writers, I guess, that I don't want to blow up what's the sum of this new body of work, if you know what I mean. But it's interesting to see that Graham Hancock is looking to release his next second season on Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix, basically being now down in the Americas. And a lot of what I'm focusing on ties, I guess, a lot of Native American mythology and entheogenic use to what's been going on in the Nile Valley, and also a little further east with regards to Hindu scripture and bits and pieces. And like I've said before, how many commonalities do you need to find before we can actually get rid of the use of coincidence? Do you know what I mean? Because there's you've seen the memes, and coincidence does take planning with regards to what we see that's clearly global. You know, something happened, whether there's a big conspiracy to hide what was clearly going on before recorded history, I guess. I don't genuinely, I'm not one to think that there's a big conspiracy with the archaeologists closing everything down because they know something they don't want the world to know. I just genuinely believe that, I guess people like myself, like the Hancocks of the world, and the plethora of guys that we all follow that are doing amazing things on YouTube and Twitter and bits and pieces, that we can't all be wrong. You know, it's almost as if we're winning the race to a certain extent, if you know what I mean. There's a goal that we're all trying to get to. Falsehoods aside, we're trying to throw out all the trash and the misinformation, which AI is very good at popping onto the internet these days. But I genuinely believe that there's researchers like ourselves out there that are knocking on the door to a far bigger picture to the human story, really. And I think a lot of it comes down to, excuse me, these entheogenic compounds that are clearly hardwired to the human experience, you know, that we're only really sort of, I guess, touching base with again after the psychedelic 60s and 70s, really. Some of the bands and some of the artworks at the times when these things weren't as demonized as they had been for the past sort of 30 or 40 years. It makes you wonder where the research would be now if that wasn't the case, you know. And it seems that our ancestors might have been privy to, well, I'm going to say technologies, but I don't mean sort of hard-based digital satellites, rockets, and what have you, but just with regards to the technology that nature has given us, you know, with regards to who we are, what these plant varieties actually hold with regard to expanding human consciousness, and the possibility that we might not actually be alone regarding this huge dark void we call the cosmos. I certainly don't think we're alone along them lines, but you might have seen a few of my tweets recently with regards to UFOs and what we call UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, which I like to consider with regards to along the route of my research, as an ultra-terrestrial aether phenomenon. I think these things might actually be here with us, but just beyond our ocular capacity to witness them firsthand in real time, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Beyond the scope of maybe introducing entheogenics to open up our ocular capacity to a bandwidth, which is basically a Rizzler of what's out there, you know?
Of the spectrum, the ultraviolet spectrum. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, we're kind of hamstrung by our perceptual architecture or hardware, however you want to put it.
Absolutely.
And the same with the consciousness as well. I mean, we might get into this if we've time at the end, but one of the things that interests me is the nature of consciousness and the reality in which it exists in, and whether these entheogens that you research are a way of picking a lock somehow or opening up, giving us this kind of extra sensual, I was going to say. It's really sensual. Like extra sensory perceptions that aren't possible in normal waking life. And there's that famous stat about the brain, it sort of filters out 90% of everything that's happening around you, because otherwise you'd go insane. And you wouldn't be able to react to anything. You know, you'd just be a target. You know, if you think evolutionary, we'd just be a target for predators. We'd be so lost in the matrix.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's researchers out there like the Andrew Gallimores of the world that are talking about that particular ocular capacity. That we're literally a sliver of. We're seeing a sliver of possibly what could be almost lined up like a domino effect of what's actually out there. Should we introduce some of these entheogenic capabilities past the blood-brain barrier to open up, or almost not filter out the noise, but condense it down to something a little bit more coherent or cohesive? I mean, the DMT experience itself is far from cohesive and trying to understand. I mean, I don't know if you've had a DMT breakthrough, loose air quotes, breakthrough experience yourself, but trying to verbalize what you've just witnessed only moments before, which might have even felt like an absolute eternity, albeit 8 to 15 minutes. I don't think human language is even evolved enough to try and describe what is going on and I will say an alternate realm, not of reality, but maybe an alternate realm of understanding of what might actually be in front of us. And I think it's a great analogy when you say picking the lock, because I genuinely do believe that there is almost like a doorway in your mind that realistically can level up your consciousness, you know. Picture yourself excuse me, in a high-rise apartment, 20 stories tall. You're on a 10th floor looking out to the expanse in front of you. You have no idea how many proverbial levels there are above and below, but there are definitely realities going on that you're not actually aware of, if that makes any sense.
Have you come across P.D. Ouspensky, that Russian philosopher from the late 19th, early 20th century?
It's not a name I'm familiar with, no.
Oh, you should check out his stuff on dimensions and how he tries to describe the possibility of extra dimensions through analogy. And it's probably the best stuff I've ever read when it comes to someone trying to break down how fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions would be perceived by a three-dimensional being like us.
I'll have to get that name off you again.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. I'm sure you can download. I mean, there's one book, A New Model for the Universe, that has a chapter on the fourth dimension, and I think you can probably download that. They're probably out of copyright now. Sure. And the other one is called Tertium Organum, which is practically taking that chapter. Yeah, it is for me, but I'm pretty smooth-brained. It's like taking that chapter and expanding it into a whole book. So it's like, it's mind-blowing stuff. I'm sure you'd like it. It'd be right up your alley.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's got my brain ticking already.
Yeah. It's so I mean, maybe we should get on with you mentioned earlier about sort of carrying on a bit from where we left off and going over some of the stuff that you've been working on. And
Yeah, sure. I can give a very brief 2 or 3 minute overview of what the initial hypothesis was, and that continues to evolve and what have you. I'll bring a little. Where are we? I bet I've got rid of this screen share now, haven't I? Here we go. Let's screen share again. We'll open this up and let me know if you can see it and if we're okay.
Yeah, I got it nice and big here. That's grand.
Fantastic. Okay, right. So I can't see you at the moment, but I'm just going to wing this with a screen and the image that I've got in front of me. Cool. Excuse me.
So I'm looking at a slide. It's got Sahu as like an Orion constellation and a DMT molecule next to him. Is that right?
Fantastic. Yep, fantastic. So we initially spoke about how I believe, and it's my contention, that the ancient Egyptian myth of Osiris being rescued from within inside a tamarisk tree and being synonymous with what is known as the lifeblood of the acacia, or the sap of the acacia. He was rescued by his wife's sister Isis and then murdered at the hands of his, I guess, loose air quotes again, evil brother Seth, before becoming synonymous with the constellation of Orion. Something that the archaeologists are really quite steadfast in running away with, saying that's their cosmology. Why change it? Why look into it anymore? But as I say, it's from my perspective and more of a scientific angle that I'm starting to look at this. We find that within the sap of the acacia, which is their I guess cosmology's tree of life, just like an abundance or a plethora of cosmologies globally, it all comes back down to the acacia, which was so held in such high revere, but nobody really kind of knows why. And it's my contention that it's Isis rescuing Osiris from within the acacia via the sap, and being called the lifeblood of the acacia, is more of an extraction process of an entheogenic compound for a psychedelic chemical compound found in the human brain and throughout nature, known as N,N-dimethyltryptamine, or the spirit molecule, or loosely DMT.
Yep.
And we find that the molecular structure of DMT appears to share more than a plethora of commonalities alongside the constellation of Orion. So first of all, I'm just going to bring this back down. There we go. Can you see my cursor here? Yeah.
Yeah. Joining the dots as intended.
Fantastic. So on the left, we've got a basic 2D or two-dimensional rendition of the chemical DMT, and next to it, again, we can see that Orion, albeit Osiris in the sky, it's not a carbon copy, but it's pretty damn close regarding what's going on. And it was a friend of mine, once I'd actually published The Spirit in the Sky, actually came to me because I'd had a lot of people saying to me, well, it could all be pareidolia, which is granted, and I can understand that. But with regards to the chemical makeup, or the DNA, I guess, of the particular molecule DMT, we can see that the bottom of the DMT, chemical here has actually got a more of a hexagon shaped molecule as opposed to the trapezium that we see within the constellation of Orion.
Sure.
Which was a fair enough comment. But as I say, a friend of mine, got a hold of me, and he's actually a biologist and a chemist, and a very, very learned and eye-opening gentleman that actually put this to me. So he actually thought about opening up this particular constellation to the constellation below it, which is the rabbit, known as Lepus today in the 21st century.
So that's extending the bottom of the Orion constellation as you see it in the sky.
Absolutely.
To create a hexagon.
It's not just a case of fudging some lines with the stars to make this fit the hypothesis, because Osiris actually has a number of namesakes that he's synonymous with. And one of them is an ancient Egyptian deity named Wenet, who has a rabbit's head. It's known as Osiris, but it's basically Osiris with a rabbit's head or a hare's head.
Right.
And rather intriguingly, when we decide to expand this somewhat ill-fitting molecular structure of Orion, albeit the trapezium of that particular constellation, we open that up into Lepus, the rabbit's head, along with the mythology. It actually creates almost a perfect molecule in the sky, which is a little bit crazy, There's known throughout Egypt as what is known as the mysteries of Abydos, where Osiris he takes his journey to the other world via the cosmic barge, which is known as the Neshmet. Now, we have the second brightest star, excuse me, in the constellation of Wennet, albeit Lepus. We know today as Mula Poris, but the ancient Egyptians actually called it Neshmet. So if we actually take the foot of Osiris, albeit the constellation of Orion, the bottom right-hand star and the bottom left-hand stars, they actually set foot aboard the Neshmet, which is mind-blowing to say the least. But as again, I'm not going to hover on this too much, but as we found out as well, with regards to opening up this molecule just a little bit more, we also find a star, albeit the brightest star, in the constellation of Lepus, is known as Alpha Laboris. Excuse me. We extend that down to a star that they actually called Nile, believe it or not, and it's Osiris's journey across the Nile to the other world. The other world being, in my mind's eye, a breakthrough experience with these otherworldly entities that seem to have a knowledge of not just the cosmos, but an intimate knowledge of who you are. They recognize you and almost welcome you back.
Right.
But as this appears again to mimic serotonin in the sky, we understand that serotonin is secreted by the proverbial third eye, the pineal gland, at certain times of the day, and it's meant to give us an uplifting feeling, a feeling of joyfulness, of well-being. And rather surprisingly, or coincidental again, as I said, coincidence takes planning, Nile, which makes this possible, the star Beta Leporis, actually translates as joyfulness.
Wow.
Which is a little bit freaky to say the least. But once again, I'll miss this one. Here we go. Going back to Sahu, we find that Osiris is also synonymous with the greatest deity, the overriding deity known as Sahu. And Osiris is only assimilated to Sahu once he sets foot upon the Neshmet. So it's another kind of allegorical clue to follow the proverbial dots in the sky and join them up.
Right, so like an expansion of consciousness or an ascension, becoming a higher being, that kind of thing.
And we find that this particular methodology is actually hidden right in front of us. Should we care to, I guess, unbox the package or the myth that they've given us? And rather surprisingly, Sahu's got a number of namesakes as well. Right. Excuse me, I've got a dry throat. I do apologize. It's shouting at that TV. He's also known as the hidden one, and we know that DMT is hidden inside the acacia. We also understand that Sahu is known as the incorruptible soul. Now, anyone that's had a DMT experience that'll ring those proverbial alarm bells, and you know what I mean? It'll ring true to them. It didn't to me, first of all, prior to my first DMT experience. I was just going literally by affidavits of other people that had done it, that were close to me, and I was going on, just secondhand information, for want of a better description. I didn't believe there was anything after this particular life experience. I was I had a very atheist mindset and outlook, a case of fade to black and that's it, game over, well done, jobs are good, and we'll bury you now. But after obviously my DMT experience, there's no other way to say it. I genuinely believe that we all are incorruptible souls, that this life does go on, that human beings are associated with very heavily and dependable upon light, and even break up the word human as well. When you have hue, man and being as well, hue is another word for light, you know, a light being.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, again, I'm not trying to package this into a model that fits what I'm looking for. I mean, the amount of channels or avenues I've gone down that I thought were potential sort of rubber stamps for what I'm saying, I've had to jettison and kind of cast aside. I don't want to fudge any numbers or start fabricating things just to make this hypothesis kind of fit where I think it should fit, just for the sake of having a good book and a load of Twitter followers or something.
Yeah, got you.
If it doesn't, if it's not a piece to the puzzle, then it's just going to get kind of thrown out. But what I did find was that Sahu was also had another namesake, which was Beautiful Renewal, which is kind of it's somewhat of a throwaway title, but the archaeologists or Egyptologists like to think of it being a renewal of the Nile Valley year in, year out. Osiris's green skin is to do with the green land and what have you. But I don't think it's backward thinking. I think it's archaic thinking. I think we need to, for a civilization that was in possession of being able to build something as awe-inspiring as the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and some of these carvings that we find at the Serapeum. It's clearly they weren't copper wielding tribes, people, whatever you want. I mean, Hollywood makes some wonderful movies about what's going on, but realistically, we've got to look at a bigger picture and start to question what we think we actually know. And the Egyptians even talk about a vaster heritage that goes back way beyond what we've got documented from literally the first dynasty back 5000 BC, you know.
Yeah, there's a term they use. Is it something Tepe the first time?
Zep Tepe. And it was, I think it was John Anthony West as well that hit upon how that particular terminology, because I mean, this Zep Tepe, it dates back to more or less loosely around 36,000 BC.
Wow.
Which is mind-blowing. But to call something the first time, as opposed to, I think it might have been Laird Scranton that came up with this, but if there was a first time, they're alluding to there's times after that where they've tried to set up civilization, let's say, as opposed to just stating it as the time when civilization started to flourish, when ancient Egypt started to chronicleize their own heritage, their own path through time.
That's such a good point. By calling it the first time, they're insinuating that there have been resets through the course.
Absolutely. And
I never thought of that before.
Well, with the much famed Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which now some people are starting to say it might be something to do with the precessional cycle being divided up almost like a pie chart, you know, like you've heard of the Yuga cycle.
Yes.
For the golden ages, and then an age of ascension, and then an age of disappearing, whereby we kind of lose everything and then rise again. I think these guys were on point. I think they've tried to give us a backbone of understanding of what it means to be on this particular elliptical orbit, going through what appears to be this devastating chain of a fallout from a comet 12,000 years ago, which brought the end to the last ice age.
And I mean, knowing that your civilization has been reset in the past would be one motivation for building something that weighs, 2 or 3 million tons.
Absolutely. So I've just lost you on screen again. I'm trying to find it for the life of me. Here we go.
It's all right. It's because I've just got the screen share up. I can just come back if you want to.
No, it's not a problem. No, it's not a problem. No, I think that, yeah, I think we're missing a trick, you know. I mean, a lot of people out there at the moment, it's the go-to kind of, it's like the buzzword, Göbekli Tepe. Everyone wants a little slice of Göbekli Tepe, you know. But Göbekli Tepe isn't the oldest, you know. I mean, the Göbekli Tepe, as far as we know, it's more or less 10,000 years old, bordering 12,000 years old. But that's when we know when it was buried. Yeah. How long it was for, how long it was there before, no one knows. I mean, that's always going to be debatable.
And I mean, they've only excavated a tiny amount of it. And if there's one thing we know about us as people, is we tend to build on top of sacred sites. Wherever you look, there's usually a layer underneath that's even older.
100%. And literally, as you throw a couple of proverbial stones further to the west, you've got a place called, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Bonkoklutala.
Right.
Bonkoklutala. It actually spans the duration of the Ice Age and the Younger Dryas. So we know it was there before. And we're finding not just pot shards, but we're finding intricately designed beads that almost look like they've been drilled. There's thousands of them, like literally the place is littered with them, you know. But nobody wants to talk about it. You know, like you say, Göbekli Tepe itself has been partially excavated by somewhat 5 to 6%. But I mean, I've been aware of Göbekli Tepe since the late 90s, and we're talking 30 years of excavation, and that percentage hasn't shifted.
Well,
nothing's happened.
They're talking about stopping now, aren't they? They're talking about stopping and preserving it for the future.
And where's that going to get us? I mean, please, you know, it's realistically, again, I know I'm kind of spitballing and going from one subject to another, but I think a lot of this is codependent on mainstream world religion, you know, with regards to what these entheogenic chemical compounds can do, and what our ancestors may have been privy to in the future. I mean, I guess the puppet masters, the Illuminati, the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, conspiratorial or not, there appears to be a body in charge of basically shutting this stuff down, you know. And if entheogens, naturally occurring entheogens in the human brain, actually give you a better outlook on life after death, love thy neighbor, be nice, do you know what I mean, love the fucking planet, you know, that doesn't make money. That's not in their interest. Hence, quite possibly that's why they're stopping excavations, you know. I mean, maddening.
You can argue that was part of the motivation behind the war on drugs in the 60s, because it was involved in the war in Vietnam and
100%
peace and love and all the rest of it.
Not bombs, right?
Yeah. It's like, good luck, you know, convincing a population of DMT stoners to go and fight a war for you. They'll tell you to fuck off, I imagine.
Madness. It's absolute madness. I mean, we've all seen the memes going around on Twitter where you've got ex-President Trump sitting with a shaman taking a cup of ayahuasca, and then everything that guy then sees, and he's going round, and you see him like literally in a hot tub with Putin, and everything's good. You know what I mean?
I've not seen that.
I'm not sure that was one of them, but that's the gist it's giving you know what I mean? But yeah, realistically, again, it's why demonize something that appears to not only give you almost dissolve your fear of death, but also completely shatter your worldview of what reality is actually about. You know, you can actually start questioning your existence, where we've come from, where we're going, what might be next, because when you've had a breakthrough DMT experience and these, I guess, loose air quotes, Terence McKenna, machine elves, shape-shifting, multi-dimensional, machine-looking beings that just welcome you back, you know, which is absolutely crazy for something that you can't, your brain's too busy trying to compute a higher dimensional situation where you're at a viewpoint in the middle of the cosmos, just floating there with mad geometric cosmos, inward folded. I mean, again, like I said, the human language doesn't
do it justice.
Cater for it, you know. But everything seems oddly hell-bent, freakishly familiar, you know. And these guys seem to recognize you as well. Yeah, I've gone from fade to black to, I mean, I don't want to die, but yeah, I'm quite excited for, yeah, what the future may hold for psychedelic exploration, really. We know that DMT right now as well is going for a number of trials to help people, stroke victims and dementia. And I mean, how can you demonize something like that that's naturally occurring via the human eyes, brain, cerebral spinal fluid? It's in our lungs. Dennis McKenna literally said, like, you've got a war on drugs, but we are drugs. You know, we are chemicals. We are the components of what you're trying to ban. And some of them might quite be literally codependent on us and our ocular capacity to understand reality. Without DMT, none of this might not even be possible. This literally is a psychedelic experience, whether we like it or not. My lungs inhaling air and exhaling air is a psychedelic experience. I mean, the breath itself almost sounds like, I mean, I was talking, again, I'm spitballing, going left, right, and center, but my research talks about Osiris being the original god of resurrection before Jesus. Jesus was known as, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, there was no such name as Jesus 2,000 years ago. The letter J was only invented 500 years ago. So do the math. I mean, what's going on there? He's going back 2,000 years ago. The name of Jesus was Yahweh. And going back to the breath, you breathe in, you breathe out. Yeah, it's a psychedelic experience. They're giving you the keys to kind of read between them proverbial lines once again, if that makes any sense.
Gosh, Awa was the chant that those mad Amazonian women who were high on the purple, that's what they used to scream as well. Awa.
And how did an Amazonian tribe get the name of an overriding demigod, which is Jesus's original name, which actually was born in the Middle East 2,000 years ago? You know, it's realistically, I think someone somewhere immaterial, call it an entity. I think we're all, no matter what geological location you might be privy to or being born in, I think that when you have this, this DMT experience, we're all meeting the same deities, the same, they're giving us the same kind of fundamental understanding or keys to understand what some of these ancient religions were trying to get to us, trying to pitch to us via allegory. You know, the Bible itself, almost every other page is trying to remind you that it's allegorical. You know, it's the words of the wise. You know, read between it. Don't take it legitimately, because you're going to learn something. You're going to learn to be nice and love thy neighbor and all of that. But there appears to be some kind of biological blueprint or template to, I guess, the higher realms of human consciousness that are laid out in some of the world's most sacred texts, but have been not mistranslated, but misused almost for the powers that be in order to kind of control us and keep us at each other's throats, as opposed to singing from that same proverbial hymn sheet and saying, actually, do you know what? This is all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Like you've just said, how can an Amazonian tribe be chanting Yahweh? You know?
It seems like these sort of access to these entheogens at some point in history, probably going back thousands of years, it became something that was limited just to the upper classes, if you like. Sure. So like you like your mystery schools of Eleusis or wherever in Greece. It tended to be philosophers and emperors and people in like the upper echelons of society that got to partake.
Yeah.
Whereas now we seem to be entering a period, how maybe it was, tens of thousands of years ago, where these compounds were accessible more widely, and it'd be interesting to know what effect that might have in the long term.
Yeah, 100%. And it wouldn't surprise me if we've also lost probably dozens of botanical varieties that have just gone extinct.
Really, from the rainforest, from South America.
Yeah, well, we know that the Sahara was a budding forest. I mean, there has to be, again, I think something like DMT being such a potent psychedelic, able to literally shatter your worldview in minutes, and that it's found in abundance throughout the botanical world, throughout the animal kingdom. There are obviously varieties of fauna that are clearly have higher potentials of this extractable entheogenic chemical compound. And just like when I'm searching for Osiris, to find out that around 80 to 90% of some of the oldest cultures and traditions globally all come back to the acacia. They all come back to the acacia. The Ark of the Covenant was assembled to commune with God, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was it made out of? It was made out of shittim. What was shittim? Shittim is a variety of acacia.
Right.
We're communing with someone or something via these experiences. Call it God, call it a higher entity, call it a higher order of existence, call it what you want. But there's clearly, I don't think everyone can be wrong, for people, including myself, to kind of come back from a DMT experience and then sort of poke your body around in this really weird, odd-fitting meat suit. Do you know what I mean? Prior to the DMT experience, life was life. This was my body. I've lost my hair. I've got freckles. I'm 6'2", whatever, But all of a sudden, coming back from that experience, it was like, damn, man, just wow. It's really, really strange. It's almost like putting a spacesuit on and going to coming home, but you have to wear a spacesuit. It's really, really strange.
Wow.
It's very, very strange.
Did you, I'll just tell you, the last time you were on, a friend of mine saw the interview, and he's a chemist by trade, and he's also an amateur astrologer, and he just could not get his head around it. He saw the bit about the constellation of Osiris or Sahu, the extended one, and then the DMT thing, and he couldn't get his head around it at all. And I thought about it, and I couldn't get my head around it either. What is the implication of having the molecule DMT match a constellation in the sky? Probably the most well-known constellation in the sky.
Absolutely. Again, with a lot of ancient mythologies, albeit Greek, a lot of the Bible is mythology. A lot of the Quran's mythology. Everything is mythology per se with regards to these sacred scriptures. And if we, let's say, history aside,
does it mean that the people who came up with this story, the Osiris story, knew what the molecule DMT looked like?
100%. And Jeremy Narby goes a long way to helping someone understand this outside of what I'm writing. Yeah.
What's the name of the book? The Serpent.
Not the Serpent in the Sky. It's because that was on Anthony West's. This is really bad of me. I'm not at home, otherwise I'd reach to my bookshelf.
I can't find it. I read it about a year or two ago.
He's so on point. When he asks the shaman in I think it's the Ashaninka shaman tribes in the Amazon basin of where they got this knowledge from.
The Cosmic Serpent. That's the book.
The Cosmic Serpent.
Yeah.
If anyone's not read that, straight away,
get on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's literally brain food. It's a fantastic write. It really is. And if anything, I was going to say it goes a long way to establishing what I'm trying to get across, but also what I'm trying to get across goes a long way to establishing what Jeremy Narby's actually trying to say in the Cosmic Serpent via these shaman from the Amazon that are actually saying that on ayahuasca experiences, they can, for all intents and purposes, see the molecular structure of these plants.
Yeah.
Which does sound outrageous, but again, Crick discovered DNA via LSD. You know, something somewhere was showing him the capacity to see beyond the scope of our everyday ocular capacity once again. You know, and if there are entheogenic entities lying in wait, waiting for us to utilize a chemical compound, and almost, I think, I'm not sure if it was last time we spoke or the podcast after, but he likened it to the movie Avatar. You know, where the Avatar, he's got his ponytail and he literally plugs it into the tree of life.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden it's like a massive download of, I get it. I get it. And that's essentially what ayahuasca and DMT appears to do, but I guess fleetingly, you know, because it's like a dream, you know. You wake up sometimes, you've had the most amazing dream, you kind of shake that dream out of your head, and you can't remember it 20 minutes later, you know. But 20 minutes prior, it was the most eye-opening, mind-boggling, fabulous dream that you just wanted to recall and almost write a book about. But it's faded, it's gone, it's just out of reach. It's just out of reach.
That's a great connection, which I hadn't made, the connection between Jeremy Narby's book and how these guys, these shaman types, can actually sort of see DNA. The Cosmic Serpent is essentially DNA. That's what they're looking at. And that would explain how people tens of thousands of years ago in Egypt would be able to read essentially the chemical formula of DMT. But it still doesn't explain why it's the same shape as the Orion constellation.
Which, admittedly, okay, the stars are in a fixed position for all intents. From how they're always moving. We're moving. The Earth's traversing across the elliptical plane around the sun, however fast, X, Y, Z. But as we see stop-start motion, the constellations look the same. They look the same. Yes. The constellation of Orion is extremely close. No, it's not a carbon copy, but if you have an overriding understanding of a molecular structure that you believe something somewhere, will be an entity, the plant, or just the experience itself, showed you the fabric of what you are, who you are, what the cosmos may or may not be about, and where to get this particular molecule. And now you can see it. Being able to actually look up and identify something in the heavens, it's right. Proverbial as above, so below.
Yeah.
Yes, I've had people come to me and say, so you're actually saying that the Orion constellation is like a giant DMT molecule? No, that's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying at all. Excuse me. What I'm saying is that there's an overwhelming commonality with the makeup and structure of that particular constellation, which the ancient Egyptians, who were in a wealth of understanding via like we've said, constructing something like the Great Pyramid. I mean, they were no fools. They were definitely no fools. In order to document something so profound without all the gray matter, without all the benzene ring, without all the particular chemical counterparts of what actually makes that particular molecule feasible and what it actually does to us, why not create otherworldly hero stories, just like the myth of Pegasus, the myth of Hercules, the myth, you know, that's going to stand the test of time and people are going to remember. And if there's something above them that they can reflect upon, then that again, it's almost like it's I don't want to say rubber stamp it, but excuse me, to have a cosmology where a god of the underworld, which is loosely termed, they say an other world, which is inhabited by the dead, by pharaohs of a bygone era of gods, which we liken to the Elysian fields of the Grecian mythologies. If we actually, what am I trying to get at? You have to be in a society, in a position where we are today, to understand what's going on. We didn't have, let's say, electron microscopes going back 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, let's say. So what I'm proposing is that this Hancock-esque lost civilization might not have had an electron, like I say, microscope, but they were privy to the entities, albeit the plants or the shaman, being in a position to actually recognize the significance or the makeup or the structure of this chemical compound. And they've decided to build a series of myths where they've emblazoned this upon the sky as well, whereby Osiris, first of all, is extracted from within the acacia. He's known as the lifeblood of the acacia, which tells us to look within the sap of the acacia. And then he's murdered at the hands of his brother and becomes the constellation of Orion. What do Orion and the molecular structure, albeit the sap of the acacia, have in common? Well, they have a chemical compound that we find in the human brain, throughout the animal kingdom, throughout the botanical world, that appears to mimic what's going on in the sky. What a better way to get this message down through the ages for, I guess, a scientifically savvy society like ourselves, to start reading between the lines, and instead of running away and just believing what the Egyptologists are telling us. You know, the dude was rescued from a tree by his wife, was killed, became the constellation of Orion. What does that tell us? It tells us nothing. It tells us nothing. But again, if we follow the myth and we follow the footsteps of the myth of Osiris to set foot aboard the Neshmet, there's a star called the Neshmet in the rabbit's head. And it's the rabbit's head that is deified, that becomes synonymous as Wenet, as Osiris in the sky. And it's that overriding, culmination of deities combining is how we get Sahu. And again, you can see Sahu on the screen once again. And you could run with this or run away from it. But in my mind's eye, I think it makes far more sense for a civilization, again, that is able to build these structures like the Great Pyramid, and what we see throughout ancient Egypt. Quite clearly, they had an understanding. You know, they weren't as silly as I guess we're
led to believe.
Led to believe, and pigeonholing them. You know, it's absolutely crazy. Yeah. Absolutely crazy.
It's such a disservice, isn't it? Sometimes the way people talk about them, like the old slave thing, kind of gets my back up. Oh, they just had lots of slaves and lots of time. That's how they did it. It's like, nah, I'm not.
It drives me mad. It absolutely drives me mad. Now, this actually goes hand in hand with my research from Göbekli Tepe. Right. And I will just...
Oh, have you got some more slides to show?
Yeah, I'm just going to... In fact, before we do touch on that, I will bring up... there's one just before. Here we are. Okay. So I talk about this at length in Searching for Osiris. I don't know if you can see what's on the screen at the moment.
Yeah, the Southern Crux constellation and
Southern Crux constellation.
Inca Chakana.
The Incan Chakana.
Right.
Now the Incan Chakana, I mean, it's, to be fair, I might just read this off the screen because it's going to be, it literally kind of boxes it, compartmentalizes it without me waffling off too much. But central to the Incan cosmology is the Chakana, which is a talisman, which is symbolic of the Southern Crux constellation of the Tree of Life. This is found in the Southern Hemisphere, okay? Because
Southern Cross, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We can't
But
see
the
it up here.
etymology, sorry?
We can't see it up here. You've got to be below the equator, haven't you, to see Southern Cross?
Exactly, exactly. But the etymology of Chakana is based upon the word Chakai, which actually means a bridge or to cross over, okay?
Right.
And the symbol is often created in such a way that only half of it protrudes from architectural structures, and the cross is thus completed by the shadow created by the sun. The shadow representing the non or immaterial other world.
Right.
Okay, so that starts to, puzzle pieces start to fall into place, if you know what I mean. But the brightest star from that particular constellation is called Mimosa. Now, Mimosa is a variety of acacia found in the South American jungles of the Amazon, which is used for the production of ayahuasca. They extract DMT from their tree of life, from Mimosa.
Right.
And they're actually got they've symbolized this and immortalized it in such a way. They're trying to tell us that it's a bridge, it's a way to cross over to an immaterial realm and come back alive. Let's say you don't have to die to enter the other world. It can be traversable via this this chemical compound found within the tree of life, and it's absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, it's often referred to as the first death, isn't it? Because you do kind of die. You kind of your second death is the one where you cross over, but this is sometimes referred to as the first death, or ego death is sometimes referred to as well.
That's it, 100%, 100%. We can see in the Aboriginal coat of arms as well. The flowers that we can see on there are actually known as the golden wattle, and the golden wattle, have a guess what variety it is?
Was it an acacia by any chance?
It's an acacia, and it dates back some 65,000 years to the Aboriginal myth of Dreamtime, and they have a cosmic serpent in Dreamtime as well, just like the cosmic serpent of Nabi's ayahuasca visuals that he was seeing via the Ashaninka tribe in the Amazon jungle.
Yeah.
So again, it's there's so many cross-pollinated cosmologies. It's like the cultures are all remembering the same thing, but just with an element of how their culture would better understand it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Crikey, let me just scroll down here. Okay, just because we're in South America, we've got pre-Columbian artifacts that not a lot of people kind of talk about, to be fair. I mean, they're literally housed in museums globally, but no one really knows what they're about. And again, it's my contention that a lot of these deified golden idols are actually depicting the otherworldly DMT entities we actually come across via a breakthrough DMT freebase experience or an ayahuasca journey. Well, you can see on the right hand side here, I think his name was Luke Brown, the artist that actually put these together, and these were from his own DMT travels, let's say. But when we stick these side to side with these ancient pre-Columbian artifacts that no one knows how old they are, there's so much in common. It actually beggars belief. It really does beggar belief. And excuse me, as if you wanted another kind of nudge in the right proverbial direction, the pre-Columbian, or the go-to, I should say, pre-Columbian creator deity is known as Itzamna, and he was ruler of heaven and night. And it's the etymology, again, which I found extremely interesting, because Itza translates as magic and sap. So
the magic sap.
The Americans won't get that one, but yeah, there's a couple of magic saps I've come across in my time.
Oh, this is Tiwanakus. This is Bolivia now.
Bolivia, yes. I'm not sure who's responsible for putting this particular correlation together. I talk about it in the book, and I believe thus far I've given Dennis McKenna the citation for it. Although I've recently been speaking, I don't know if you saw a tweet that went out via Graham Hancock recently. His son Luke was doing an interview with a gentleman by the name of Darry Bukowski.
Right.
a Polish gentleman that's moved to the Peruvian, I think it's the Peruvian Amazon, and for want of a better description, he's basically a shaman now.
Wow.
And in his conversation with Luke, he was talking about these same deified idols that we find at Tiwanaku. And it's absolutely staggering. It really is absolutely staggering, because it appears, I mean, there's ideas of what these, I guess, deified monoliths might be about, but there's no overriding that makes a world of sense. I'm going to back that, until you come across what the likes of this Darry Bukowski and Dennis McKenna appear to be talking about. Because it looks like these guys are actually holding snuff trays, snuff tubes, and snuff pouches. And the decoration that we find that's been inscribed, excuse me, or indeed carved into the arms of these monoliths actually appear to look like the seeds that are extracted from Anadentrina columbrina, which is a psychedelic variety found within that region, which we know today contain both NN-dimethyltryptamine, DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, and bufotenine. So they've immortalized, I guess, an entheogenic deity, and symbolically shown us how to almost access this particular deity. And I find it absolutely fascinating. And to throw, I guess, the baby out with the bathwater with a lot of these guys that are, I guess, in control or running the show on a lot of these sites that appear to be locking people like Graham Hancock out of, saying, "Hey, you can't come here anymore."
Yeah.
Their stories seem archaic to state the very least. To be fair, I think there's a whole lot more scientific, cutting edge answer to what might actually be being portrayed here. And excuse me, throughout the Americas, just like we're finding throughout the Giza Plateau and beyond, we're finding a lot of these chambers that are subterranean as well, which appear to be maybe, again, for want of a better description, deprivation chambers.
Sensory depth.
Yeah, that would wholly enhance the entire psychedelic experience, albeit on mushrooms, which a lot of them are clearly using. We find these mushroom idols inscribed into into many artifacts across the globe. But the more we look at these artifacts in that same vein, it really does now look like they're trying to edge us or nudge us in the right direction with regards to these entheogenic deified idols, and how to, for want again for a better description, how to access them whilst you're alive. You know, you don't have to die to meet these gods, these deities, entities, whatever you want to call them. But access is excuse me, is definitely available to I guess the everyday freebasing psychonaut these days that want to extract it from mimosa root bark that you can basically order. There's a pun here somewhere, on Amazon, that's come from the Amazon. Kind of crazy, right?
That it is crazy, and I should probably say we don't condone on this podcast ordering psychedelics from Amazon. Do your own research.
Absolutely. They're all stories that I've heard.
Yeah, so I've heard. Oh gosh, we've got some sacred numbers here and pyramids, and oh gosh, I like this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I'm only going to touch on this very, very briefly.
That's
the book's go into it a lot more depth, but I'm just kind of a whistle-stop tour of what the research is about. But I just want to get back to how this, I guess, body of numbers, and what you can see on here, the dimensions of the pyramid and the measurements, the geodetic measurements of planet Earth, how this all comes back to, or can come back to, biblical texts. And once again, it will connect in the long run. I will get there in the long run, but it appears to connect the Great Pyramids, so the Great Pyramid of Egypt, along with Sacsayhuaman as well, which is in South America. And traditionally speaking, these civilizations, these cultures were, they were separated by not just distance, but by time, 1,500 years in some cases, 3,000 years, but that's only if we're going by the illogical timeline of what we've been told.
Yeah, the standard chronology. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But yeah, I'll get back to Saxe-Courmont because it is very, very important. So please remind me if I put a pin in that with regards to Horus and Osiris and Göbekli Tepe. Okay. But for those that aren't aware and are wondering what all this may or may not be about, we find that the height of the Great Pyramid multiplied by 43,200 is equal to the polar radius of the Earth, which... Yeah, okay, you can kind of, that's a coincidence.
Sure.
We can set that aside. But again, we'll try and stack up a number of coincidences to find out if there could be a lot more to what's going on here. So we find that the latitude of the Great Pyramid is 29.9792458, excuse me, north, which appears to reflect the speed of light traveling in a vacuum of 299,792,458 meters per second. Which is, again...
It's another coincidence.
Another coincidence.
Yeah.
But what I did look into with regards to that, because a lot of people like to poo-poo it and say, oh, well, longitude and latitude was only invented sort of 500 years ago, this, that, and the other, and meters and what have you. It's like, okay, well, I think we're actually rediscovering a lot. People have said, well, what about the longitude? Where does that come in? And for a time, I didn't have an answer. But it doesn't, I mean, my maths isn't wonderful, but you don't have to be a wonderful mathematician to actually take the longitude of the Great Pyramid being 31.134667 east and dividing it by 360, because we're talking about the Earth, we're talking about a circle, right?
Yeah. And
that is actually equal to 0.0864. The significance of that being the diameter of the sun is approximately 864,000 miles across. So it's almost backing up what the latitude was saying with regards to how close it appears to be with the speed of light. We've now done a mathematical equation where all we've literally done is taken the GPS coordinate, divided it by 360, and it's actually come out with the same numbers that appear to reflect the sun once again.
Yeah. And millions of other things, because 864 again is one of these super harmonic numbers that you'll find all over.
Exactly, which is where we'll get to Göbekli Tepe in a minute as well.
Right.
So we find that a circle drawn in meters within the base of the Great Pyramid, subtracted from a circle drawn around its base, is also equal to the speed of light. So,
and that's kind of like squaring the circle as well, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice. I haven't heard that one.
So we find, I said this all comes it comes full circle and goes hand in hand with biblical text and what have you. So we found out that the Bible's first 3 days of creation are at verses 5, 8, and 13, which I'm sure you know are part of the Fibonacci sequence. Yeah, part of the golden ratio, we like to call it.
Right. Yeah.
But the height of the Great Pyramid once stood at 5,813 inches. Okay. So a circle with a radius of 5,813 inches has a circumference of 36,524 inches. And we find that there are 365.24, no less, 0.24 days in a solar year.
Wow, hang on. I'll have to read this again. The height of the Great Pyramid once stood, so this was when it was complete, essentially, and it had the stone on the top. So it once stood at 5,813 inches. A circle with a radius of 5,813 inches thus has a circumference of 36,524 inches. Oh my gosh, so it's encoding the length of the year in its height, but also the height is also a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely
bonkers.
It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be feasible. It should not be feasible, should it, realistically? And you've got to remember as well that the Great Pyramid itself is dedicated to the god, the solar god, Amun Ra. Amun Ra is a solar deity. So it's telling you it's to do with light once again.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And we also understand now that a beautiful timing for this little quote as well, because it's the equinox. If you were above the Great Pyramid today, that you would find out that it didn't have 4 sides, that it actually had 8 sides.
Yes.
And those 8 sides are actually concave. And there was a gentleman by the name of Alan Green that actually done some measurements with these with lasers and radar about 2 years ago. And he actually found that the deviating angle of that concave pyramid was actually 0.432.
No way. But hang on. I mean, it would have had casing stones, so maybe it was 4-sided when it was built. Or do you think it was 8-sided like that when it was built with the casing stones in place?
Even with the casing stones, it would have still shown the shadow.
You reckon? Yeah.
Of its absolutely 100%.
Right.
100%. And the crazy thing about looking at it from above as well, I don't know if you've actually come across a computer-generated photon of light, but a cross-section of this computer-generated photon of light actually looks like the Templar cross, which looks like an 8-sided pyramid.
Got you. No, I'd never seen that. No. So a photon looks like a Templar cross.
Yeah.
Shit.
Very easy to Google. If you just put photon of light and Templar cross or Great Pyramid.
I like this. I'm getting loads of homework from this podcast. I'm loving it.
Actually, where am I? If I take my screen share off for 2 seconds.
Sure.
Where are you? Can you see me now?
No.
No. Oh no. How do I get this back on?
Well, you've probably binned it now, haven't you?
No,
oh, there you're coming back. There you are. There you are. Oh gosh, right. So that in the top right, I'm guessing, is the top row is the photon. What's that like?
It's a computer-generated holographic view or cross-section of a photon of light, theorized.
Wow.
And at the bottom, we've got the Templars cross, who are again fighting in the name of Jesus, light again, and the Great Pyramid with its concave vortices that you can actually see there as well, which do have a deviating angle of 0.432.
Yes, it's very subtle. Most people don't realize it's 8-sided, but it is.
No. I'm just going to come back to this screen share once again, because it's important that we do talk about, because this again comes full circle back to Göbekli Tepe once again, with all these numbers. So if I move that out of the way,
there we are.
Can you see that now?
Yeah, pot-bellied hill.
Okay, so Göbekli Tepe, it actually translates as pot-bellied hill, and that's what most people, sort of kind of run with and don't look any further. But we do find out the ancient Armenian namesake for Göbekli Tepe, bearing in mind that Turkey, I guess going back 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago, pretty much was Armenia. It was one, it was one geographic location. It's only borders that we've kind of invented and put in place in the modern era. Ancient Armenians used to call it Port Asar, but Port Asar translates as umbilical of Osiris, which when I found out, I mean, my eyes just kind of popped out. I was like, okay, that's
why would the ancient Armenians know about Osiris?
I have no idea. I mean, it's the ancient, quite clearly the ancient Armenians or Turks or that whatever was going on in that particular location. Well, they were all grounded in the same kind of cosmology.
Well, at the time of ancient Egypt, sort of late Bronze Age, it would have been Hittite, that sort of area.
Yes, for sure. But so again, we do know that Göbekli Tepe is oriented to the constellation of Orion once again, which again is Osiris or DMT in the sky.
Cool.
Okay, right. So this is not the one I want, but we're going to get back to this because it is very important. Right, now here we go. So we've already found out that Göbekli Tepe, it goes by another namesake, Port Asar. Port Asar translates directly as the umbilical of Osiris, and we know that the sun's diameter, excuse me, the sun's diameter is 864,000 miles. There's a couple of typos on this, so I'm gonna sort of talk over. We're kind of wing this a little bit. But what we find in ancient Egypt, the single most identifiable temple in ancient Egypt regarding Osiris is known as the Assyrian. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And the Assyrian is precisely 864 miles from Göbekli Tepe.
Really?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. But what is half of 864? Half of 864 is 432, right?
Oh,
guess where the midway point of between Göbekli Tepe and the Assyrian is?
I can see it on the screen, and you're freaking me out.
It's Jerusalem, the Dome of the Rock, also known as Luz, and also known as Peniel. And it's the place where Jacob said he saw the face of God and survived. And he called it Peniel. And he called it Peniel, again, because we're talking about the pineal gland, right? And the pineal gland, because this is all to do with light, the pineal gland is the light receptor of the body.
It's where Jacob saw the angels ascending and descending to heaven.
Exactly. And
it's where
in my mind's eye, and that's where Muhammad had his ascension
ascended
as well.
To heaven, yeah.
Yeah. In Islamic
wow.
religion. So yeah, again, we've got to kind of do the math, but we also know that the Dome of the Rock, or Luz, or Peniel, or Solomon's Temple, whatever you want to call that particular location, excuse me, in Jewish tradition, it's known as the navel of the earth. So we're actually connecting the umbilical of Osiris with the navel of the earth via the Assyrian, that have geological measurements that appear to identify the sun being 864 miles, the halfway point being 432. Now, if you want to do a little bit more maths, you can do 432 times 432, which is 186,400, which is, once again, the distance light travels in a vacuum. Light travels in a vacuum. Now, 186,400 miles per second.
If you join those sites up, the Assyrian, Göbekli Tepe, and Jerusalem, does it form a triangle, or is it a straight line?
No, it's a straight line.
Straight line
somewhere, I think.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it's a straight line. It's a straight line. But what we also do find, though, I beg your pardon, so I'm scrolling up and down at the minute. What we do find, though, with regards to other lines, it's pretty crazy. You've got the three main, I call them belt star pyramids, but the three main pyramids of Giza, which appear to reflect what's going on with Orion above it. Mm-hmm. But the smallest, excuse me, the smallest pyramid of the three, Menkura's pyramid, if you actually draw a line from the bottom right hand corner of that pyramid, it goes directly through the central pyramid and then through Khufu's pyramid, the Great Pyramid, and you continue that line. Guess where it comes out?
Göbekli Tepe.
Spot on.
Shit.
Spot on. But if you also draw a line from the Menkura pyramid to Sacsayhuaman in South America, you get another quite strange oddity, because what we actually find out, excuse me, the casing stones, or the lower casing stones that are actually left from Menkura's pyramid, we actually find look a lot like what we find. I think I've lost you again.
I've lost you.
Here we go. Yeah, so the casing stones of the Menkura pyramid appear to reflect a lot of commonalities of what we find in Sacsayhuaman.
Yeah,
they're almost like jigsaws, and they're mortarless as well. And if you actually put them side to side, you would be forgiven for thinking that it was created by the same pair of hands, you know. And it may well have been. The reason I say this is because the pyramid of Menkura is dedicated to Horus, and Horus is a hawk-headed deity. Okay, very important, very important. Sacsayhuaman translates as the place of the satisfied falcon. Oh. Okay, the distance between Sacsayhuaman and the Menkura pyramid is 7,920 miles. 7,920 miles is the diameter of planet Earth. It's a mic drop one, right? It's like, what?
So
how many?
It's exactly But you're going round a curve, assuming the Earth isn't flat. You're going round a curve. So if you measure across the curvature of the Earth,
it is precisely 7,920 miles. And obviously, when you look at it in a two-dimensional plane, with regards, if you were to slice Earth in half, top to bottom, and then put the proverbial tape measure from east to west, 7,920 miles. And that is the place of the satisfied falcon, and it is a pyramid dedicated to a falcon-headed deity.
Do you know what I find another interesting aspect of this is that there's something special about the units that we use. And I've found this in a lot of the books I've been reading over the last few years, that the inch, the width of your thumb, the foot, even the meter, like what we call like the continental units, the meter is a sacred unit as well. There's a reason why we use these units, and it's obvious. It's on display tonight, isn't it?
And I won't butcher Alan Green's research, but for anyone that is interested in knowing more about, I guess, these particular dimensions and not dimensions, but
relationships,
units of measurement. Okay, because I've had a number of people say to me, "Well, they didn't have miles back then. They didn't have meters back then."
Of course they did.
And it's like, well, okay, no, well, I understand that, and then I show them a video that is probably between, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes long. And if you go onto YouTube and put in Alan Green and put in the Great Pyramid and its constants, okay? Constants relating to the forms of measurement that quite clearly are built in to the dimensions of the Great Pyramid. We've actually got constants known as, oh man, I'm going to butcher some of these, Euler's constant, and constants that we've only found fundamental to science over the last 100 or 200 years, but they are an underlining understanding of mathematics as a whole. Yeah. But the ancient Egyptians have quite clearly used every single one of these forms of measurement and constants and built them into the structure of the Great Pyramid for us, again, to pick the bones out of and dissect it and look at it and say, do you know what, man, they did know everything. They're actually ahead of the curve. They're ahead of the curve.
There's a reason why these units have stood the test of time. Like the old phrase, man is the measure of all things. So like an inch is the width of your thumb. A mile, mil is 1,000. It's 1,000 paces on average. The average human. A foot is a foot, or it's the length between your elbow and your wrist. A cubit, I think, is between the elbow and the extended index finger.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, it's a great system.
We are a measure of the cosmos itself. We're literally measuring sticks. We're yardsticks. It's absolutely crazy.
And when you pull it into like the cosmic realm, like you talk about the diameter of the moon, the sun, the speed of light. It's the microcosm and the macrocosm being represented.
Again, it's a reflection of as above, so below.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
fascinating. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Absolutely fascinating. But again, the list goes on. The list goes on. I mean, I'm bored. I know we're starting to get pushed for time and what have you, and I'm tiptoeing around certain things that I'm dying to say and shout out to the world. But until I publish this next book, I mean, there's a couple of mic drops coming.
How far have you got before you finished, do you think?
It's probably not going to be until next summer at the minute. I would have been happy trying to get it out there for in fact, I was planning to publish by winter solstice this year. But what with the move, the new job, and just, my mind's just all over the place at the moment. But that said, the longer I push these dates back for actually publishing, it's when more information kind of falls into your lap and you're like, man, I've got to kind of build that into it now because I'm now privy to new information, It's it's mind-blowing research. And again, it's research you can run with or run away from. But I've never claimed to be a biologist, a chemist, a physicist, or what have you. I'm just very, 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 very curious. And it seems to me that a lot of these ancient scriptures, ancient monuments, ancient cosmologies are all talking about the same fundamental underlying script. And that script is you, it's me, it's us, it's our potential and who we are, and what we can be. And I find it absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Well, like you said, Rich, we've blown well over time already. It's like, are you getting ready to wrap this up? Should we sign it off for tonight? Or is there some more stuff you want to get off your chest?
I'm happy calling it a day and doing this again in a couple of months if you want. Yeah. I really am. I mean, I can talk. Yeah, crikey. I've barely spoke about a lot of the stuff that I could talk about. But if I familiarise myself with my laptop and these screen sharings, it might go a little bit smoother next time. So we'll pencil it in for a couple of months if you want, Phil. I've got no problem doing that. I really enjoy talking to you, buddy.
No worries. It's Well, I'll email you something tomorrow. Get you some dates.
If I could just quickly though, just have a nice little shout out to a friend of mine, Wayne, who's recently, I've been working with him recently, and he's bought my books and he's really enjoying them, and he was really looking forward to this podcast tonight. So I just wanted to say, if you're listening, highly appreciate it and looking forward to chatting soon, buddy. We've got a lot to talk about and I appreciate you.
Right, excellent. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure as always, Rich. Thanks for joining us. I still can't see you. You're still sharing your screen.
Really? Oh, no. Am I serious?
It doesn't matter.
I thought you could see me that entire time.
No, well, I could see you now and again. But I was looking at your screen share mainly. That was, which was great.
I'm so sorry. My brain's been frazzled by most of this today as well, being the football. So highly apologise, man.
Did they win or not, the Goonies?
No, we was winning 2-1 and we had 6 minutes of injury time. And we were winning 2-1 with 7 minutes of injury time. And they scored an 8th minute injury time equaliser. So, yeah.
They equalised in 30
If they'd have scored a winner, I'd have completely burst my bubble for tonight. So...
Oh, well, this has been fab. Thanks again, Rich. And yeah, we'll do it again. We won't wait a whole year next time. We'll get it done sooner,
most definitely not. Most definitely not. It's an absolute pleasure. We'll get the full gang there next time as well, because their 10 cents always tend to go down a different particular train of thought and this, that and the other. And with all due respect, I learned just as much talking to you guys as the information I'm trying to sort of put out there to yourself and your listeners and that. So, I appreciate all of you and thank you very much.
No problem. Links in the show notes, folks. What have we got on the screen there? You can @Vooght RN on Twitter. And I haven't got Insta. You're on Instagram as well. You're quite active on there, I think, aren't you?
I'll tell you what, I'll share you a couple of links for when this goes live, because I've just literally, I'm gonna shameless plug this now as well, but I've actually opened up a website called DM T-shirts to die for, baby.
Oh wow, excellent. Yeah,
we've got a couple of dozen designs working at the minute with hoodies, vests, T-shirts and what have you, all centered around this train of thought with entheogenic chemical compounds, and it's just to make it a little bit more fun, more vibrant, and kind of colourful. So with a bit of luck, I'll send you the link and go and get yourself some DM T-shirts, guys.
Yeah, email me the link. I'll put it in the show notes and I'll put it in the YouTube description. That'd be fab. Right, brilliant. Thanks for joining us, Rich. A pleasure as always. Check out the books on Amazon, YouTube. You can see Rich's videos, Twitter, Instagram, all the rest. Buy some T-shirts. And I'll be back in 10 minutes after a quick break. I'm going to open the phone lines, I think, and maybe do some headlines and have a laugh. Right. Thanks again, Rich. Pleasure as always. You're a gent and a scholar, and we'll see you soon.
I'm going to come enjoy the rest of the show now, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ta-ra. See you later, folks.
Bye for now.
Bye.